Welcome everybody. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, welcome back. Today's video is on doing an oil change. What tools you're going to need, what products you're going to need, and how to do your oil change. Harley recommends you change your motor oil every 3,000 to 5,000 miles depending on what oil you use. If you use a synthetic, you can go 5,000. If you use a regular Dyna oil, it's every 3,000 miles. Harley recommends you change the primary at every 7,500 miles and the transmission every 10,000 miles. My personal belief is you change your oil every 5,000 miles with your motor, your trans, and your primary. If you do all three at the same time with synthetic oil, lubrication won't be a problem. This video is not sponsored in any way. The products that I use, I believe in, is AMSOIL. 2050 for your motor. AMSOIL sells a primary fluid engineered for the primary and also a transmission fluid that's engineered for the transmissions. Now, you know, I'm not an engineer, don't claim to be an engineer. People a lot smarter than me design these oils for these things. Harley does say you could run the 2050 and your motor, your trans, and your primary. They have engineers that are smart too. But if a company like AMSOIL or Spectral or Redline or, you know, whoever designs an oil specifically for your transmission and specifically for your primary, then that's something you might want to consider. I buy the oils individually for what they need. Moving on to supplies, other supplies you're going to need. An oil filter. I like the high flow. They come in chrome and black. Also, you're going to need 3 O-rings. The O-rings are for your drain plugs for your primary, for your motor, and your transmission. Yes, some Softails don't use an O-ring because it's a drain plug with a worm clamp. If that's the case, you don't need an O-ring for that. Alright, moving along to other supplies you're going to need is rags. You're going to need rags because your hands are going to get oily and you're going to make a mess. Also, you're going to need a good bucket to drain all your oil in. You're going to need, you don't have to have it, but Harley makes this adapter that goes onto your primary where the derby cover sits to help it make it go, you know, help the fluid go into your primary a lot easier. I recommend it. I like it. Tools you're going to need: 5/8 socket. For this bike, an extension, and of course a ratchet, 3/8 drive ratchet. You're going to need a 3/8 Allen socket. That's right, a 3/8 Allen socket, Allen wrench, or a T-handle. I like the T-handle. This is for your transmission, dipstick, and fill port. You're going to need a socket for your oil filter because you don't know who did it last. Some gorilla might put it on, didn't lubricate the O-ring, so it might give you a hard time coming off. I've seen that plenty of times. I personally use is a cordless impact gun, and without further ado, you know, a T27 socket, you're going to need that for your derby cover. Now, I always take a rag, I put it down on the lift, and we're going to bring this over and we're going to see what's going on here. Whoop, a little too much. All right, so we're going to take the 5 screws out of your derby cover. Always put the bucket underneath because you don't know if it's going to leak. Then I take the derby cover, which is stuck at this moment. All right, guys, give me a minute. I'll get this right off. Alright guys, I'm back. I was able to get the derby cover off. What we got going on here is a paper gasket behind this thing. And if you could tell where the screws were, it was really dry. So I'm going to have to clean all that up, that mating surface, in order to do it. Normally, I never ever pull the derby cover off or pull the drain plug off without removing the derby cover, because I don't want to get to a situation where I can't, if I drain it, I can't fill it without taking the whole outer primary off. So let me grab my ratchet. All right. Now we're going to drain. Again, 5/8 socket. Everything's gorilla tight. Not surprised. Now you can do the motor and the primary at the same time on this bike. And when you pull this off, you want to inspect the for any metal clumps. Shavings are okay, chunks are not. So shavings will be normal on your primary, not to worry about it. So now we'll move this under a little bit further, grab our extension, 5/8 socket, and right underneath here is your motor drain plug. And the kickstand stop is in the way, so I'm going to have to get a wrench on that. So let me grab a wrench and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got the wrench on that. I got the drag plug out. What I used is a 5/8 swiveling ratcheting wrench. Really good to get to some tight areas with. We're going to let those drain, and we're going to go ahead and do our oil filter at this time. So let me grab my other drain bucket. Put it up underneath the front of the bike. And let's get this going over here for you so you can see what's happening. Alright, like I said before, your socket, it's got a cutaway in it for the crank position sensor, so you can get past that. And I have a nice long extension with the ratchet. It's got forward controls on it. And, okay, what this wasn't put on by a gorilla. Surprise, surprise. Happy to see that. And now we'll just drain pull out the oil filter. You're going to make a little bit of a mess. That's okay. Make sure that the old gasket comes off with the old filter. Alright. So we're going to take our new filter and we're going to prime it. One of the things I like to do is prime the oil filter. And the reasoning behind that is I like to put some oil in the filter, so when the first time we crank it up, there's going to be oil in the system. I always put a little extra oil on the outside of the filter, just so I can lubricate the gasket. Now that the gasket's lubricated, we can spin the filter on. Now, how tight these filters should be? They should be hand tight with an extra quarter turn. And that's it. These don't have to be put on Gorilla tight. All right, now we go back. I'll bring you back to the back side. This way you can see what I'm doing with all the drain plugs. All right. So I'm going to take our drain plug and a pick. I'm going to take the old O-ring off. I'm going to put it to the side. I'm going to really wipe down this drain plug really well. So when I put it back in, it'll be nice and tight. Don't have to worry about it. All right, so nice new O-ring goes on the drain plug, and we can put it right back. Again, these don't have to be, you know, Gorilla tight. And since I have my ratcheting wrench here, I'm just going to use that to tighten it up. My videos, again, are not sponsored. And that's nice and snug and tight. Take our little collar, put it right in there. Grab our primary fluid, and then go ahead and fill it. Now we have a different derby cover to go on here. The owner of this bike wanted to change up his derby cover. This is the time to do it. You can change your derby cover without changing your fluid. The only caution I give is if you change your derby cover, make sure that the bike is upright. Because if you go ahead and take the derby cover off while it's on its kickstand, you're going to lose fluid. All right, now let's see if we can get this cleaned off a little bit. We're going to take a plastic scraper, and we're going to try and scrape this away as much as we can. I'm not a big fan of these paper gaskets that everybody sells. Luckily, this new derby cover that he has a place to put the stock style O-ring. So while we're going to do all this, I'll be right back. All right, we got our derby cover back on. Now I'm going to do the O-ring for the drain plug for the motor oil. So now that that's completely drained. And again, new O-ring. I cleaned off the drain plug. Put a nice fresh new O-ring on it. I'm going to slide this out of our way since I don't need it here anymore. And the transmission drain plug is on the other side. So make sure you don't cross thread these. These are aluminum. The cases are aluminum. The bolts are aluminum. So you want to make sure you don't cross thread them or over tighten them. If you over tighten them, the O-rings will tear. And if that happens, they're going to leak. Okay. That's done. All right, so now everything else we got to do is on the other side. I'm going to pause this video. We'll get you over on the other side, and then we'll do the transmission. And while we're draining the transmission, we'll fill the motor. Okay guys, we're back. We're on the other side of the bike. The transmission drain plug is right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove that drain plug. This one's a little tight. It shouldn't be this tight, but it is. But we'll find out why once we get it out. Yes, the exhaust is missing on this right now. That's because I'm waiting on some parts to come. That will make a big difference when no metal filings to speak of. So we'll put that over there. Remove this little cover to expose our fill port. Alright, I gotta get the tool for it. I forgot it on the other side of the lift. And it's always good to have a couple of funnels when doing this. This is why the swivel head is good for this application, because it is kind of tight to get in here. And you know, just having these powder coated, I don't want to scratch them or mar them of any way. There's the dipstick for the transmission, dipstick for the motor, and comes the exciting part of filling the motor. Now, these Dynas take about 2.5 quarts of motor oil. So we'll start with a fresh motor oil. These necks are amazing. They're great. I love having them. That was the heat that just kicked on. Again, I'm in Connecticut. It's barely above freezing outside. I put in this mini split unit over the summer. Actually, during the beginning of the fall, was a huge help for me, because you know, being out here in the winter and the summertime, boy, it gets hot, extremely hot out here to the point where it's unbearably hot. And then in the wintertime, it's unbearably cold in here. The construction of my garage is concrete block. So as you can imagine, with the concrete block, you know, it will radiate the outside air temp. So if it's extremely cold outside, it's going to be colder in here. If it's extremely hot outside, it's going to be like an oven in here. So this really takes the edge off. It allows me to work on bikes year round, take on some nice big projects. Like I have a 15 Street Glide over there I'm working on. I'm going to be doing a fat front tire kit on that, 180 front tire, 180 size front tire on a 21-inch rim. So I have to put a rake kit in it per the manufacturer. So the whole fairing has to come off. The outer and inner fairing and all the supports and everything has to come off that bike to change the triple trees, because that fairing is mounted on the triple trees. And I always drain my oil quarts before I throw them in the recycle bin, just so there's no oil in there for hazmat. Make sure you have a way of getting rid of all your old motor oil, too. You know, it is a hazardous material. The EPA would thank you for you being responsible to get rid of your old oil. All right. And, yep, another half a quart, it will be good. So, let me go get that half a quart. a half quart here. Like I said, 2.5 quarts to service this Dyna. Now on my Lowrider S and on my Road Glide, they are 5 quarts. Big oil pan. Alright. So there you go. Of course, once the exhaust is back on, I'm going to start it up and I'm going to check all the fluid levels again. Alright, time to do this oil O-ring. That's why you have rags. Just dump my hand right into the oil. Move that out of the way. And put the drain plug back in. And then once the drain plug's back in, we will tighten it up using our ratchet, making sure that we don't cross thread it, because that's important. Once you cross thread it, it's no good. Now the last thing I'm going to do, which I'm not going to videotape today, is I'm going to change out the brake fluid, front and rear. It's a process. I have to hook up the laptop to it. I have to open up the ABS system so all the fluid go through. And then I'm going to flush the system with some fresh brake fluid. The owner of the bike doesn't think it's ever been done. Harley recommends, well actually, any bike that has .3 or .4, you should change your brake fluid, believe it or not, every 2 years. Because brake fluid is what they call hydroscopic, which means it attracts water. Alright? A good funnel's good to have, that's small, so we can service our transmission. The transmission takes 1 quart. On some of the older Evos, it's less than 1 quart. I forget what it is off the top of my head. I think it's like 22 to 24 ounces. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But after the transmission service, the oil change on this bike is done. All I got left to do is, once I get the last of the parts for this bike, put those on, and then put the tank on it, put the exhaust on it, and put the front fairing back on. So, if you like this content, I'm going to move this over and up. You can still tell I'm very new at this. Hey, if you like this content, please like and subscribe to this channel. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you want to see in the future, for future content. Like I said, I'm going to do a back tire on a 14 Street Glide tomorrow. Tomorrow's Monday, President's Day. But I'll upload that video. It'll come out on, this will be out on Wednesday, and that'll come out on Sunday. I'm trying to do 2 videos a week on Wednesdays and Sundays, all premiering around noontime. So if you like this content, please like and subscribe. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. And, as always, live the best life you can. Right off.